Still to come, Iggy Pop, Frank Worthington, and how my bedtime turned very weird indeed.
Our mystery quote before the break came from Janis Joplin. She doesn't mind what we say about her. She's dead. Coming up, however, someone who's very much alive, certainly in the heart of every English football fan.
Hi, Frank Worthington here. Scorer many times on the pitch and a lot more off it.
Once upon a time, long before sponsorship and multi-million-pound international transfers, football was just a game. OK, so the stadiums were crap, and if you weren't poisoned by a pie, someone would probably piss down your leg through a rolled-up magazine. But at least they were characters, like striker Frank Worthington. After a 21-year career, peaking in the 70s with 8 England appearances, he's remembered as much for his action off the field as on.
Frank Worthington was one of the great English footballers. I mean, people would go and pay to just watch Frank play. I mean, he could turn a game in an instant. He scored some spectacular goals. And a lot of people could empathise with the kind of person Frank was. He would go out, have a pint, sleep with about 3 or 4 different women if he could, and go out and play 90 blinding minutes the next day.
Like his pals Alex Higgins and George Best, Frank's calmed down lately. But his reputation as one of the greatest shagging footballers remains challenged only by his reputation as one of the game's great magicians. I caught up with him for a question and answer penalty shootout, and the first one was a sitter. Has Frank ever joined the Mile High Club?
So I'm flying back from Los Angeles and had the fortune of being placed next to a very attractive French lady and her spouse. The guy fell asleep, mistake. And one thing led to another, and we ended up at the back of the plane having a wild time in the bathroom.
A definite goal there. Next question. Has Frank ever had a mother and daughter combination?
I was flown across to Sweden and I met this lovely, beautiful Swedish girl, and we went back to her house, as you do, and she was staying there with her mother, and her mother turned out to be a very attractive Swedish lady, and had a wonderful night with the daughter, and the next morning she went to work, and then you know, one thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with her mother.
Yep, it's another one for Frank. Next, that standby of footballers everywhere. Sex with a Miss World.
It was on a end of the season tour to Barbados, and who came riding down on our beach early one morning, none other than Miss Barbados, and she flew over for the Miss World, and I think she came 3rd or 4th.
Oh, unlucky, just missed. She was only a finalist and not a Miss World. Lastly, what really happened when Frank nearly signed for the decade's top team, Liverpool, but was told to take a nice relaxing holiday before the medical because his blood pressure was slightly too high.
So what did you do, Frank?
Well, I didn't get a lot of rest. In fact, on the plane going over, I ended up with a young lady who came back to my apartment.
So you shagged a bird you met on the plane? And was that the only girl you slept with?
No, I did have several.
So you went over there on holiday, you shagged a few too many girls, you came back to Liverpool,
yeah, and
in with shanks,
and the blood pressure was higher.
Have you ever been pulled off at half time, as it was?
Well, I mean, we only used to get an orange at best. Yeah.
True or false?
Once again, it's time to sort fact from fiction. You're about to hear 3 pieces of gossip about Melanie Griffith, but only one tale is true. Which one?
Actress Melanie Griffith sleeps on pillows stuffed with fur taken from her 5 golden retrievers.
Melanie has a tattoo of a pear on her left buttock.
When she first met Antonio Banderas, Melanie asked him if Spain was in Africa.
So, is it dog bed, tattooed arse, or geography dunce? Yes, Melanie does have a butt tattoo. I wonder why.
Her nickname for ex-lover Don Johnson was Pear.
Once again, it's time to bow and scrape before the mighty legend that is Iggy Pop.
Under the influence of smack, Iggy behaved very badly. he was ejected from a restaurant for urinating on tables.
Come off it, Ig. The suit wasn't that bad.
And ended up sleeping on his manager's kitchen floor. He never washed, so in the end, the housemaid simply covered him with Ajax and turned the hose on him. The drugs also made him hallucinate. When Elton John approached him backstage, still dressed in his crocodile rock outfit, Iggy believed he was being attacked by a real reptile.
Ah, run for your lives!
On the plus side, his stage act was mental. He'd often smear himself with peanut butter before cutting himself with broken glass. His shortest ever gig involved walking on stage and immediately falling headfirst into the pit.
Good evening, Cleveland!
Ending up in hospital. Which is also where he ended up after challenging a massive biker to a fight.
Come on, you soft Hell's Angels bag!
But never mind. He was probably too hopped up on China White to ever feel what you and I would call pain.
Thailand, obligatory destination for anyone in search of enlightenment, which is probably why it's so popular with hippies, who smoke a load of dope, wear sandals made from bits of old string, and say stuff like, yeah, the meditation taught me that deep inside, I'm me. Luckily, it's also a popular spot for sex tourists.
One of the most hardcore consumers of Thai toddy is William Broad, otherwise known as snarling punk god Billy Idol.
Billy Idol was a major star of the British punk scene who then relocated to America and became an absolutely phenomenal superstar of the MTV generation.
He had a big willy. Girls, they loved him for being this good-looking, wild punk character.
He was well known as a top-level shagger.
America failed to satisfy Billy's huge libido, so in 2001 he jetted off to Bangkok, ignored all the pretty temples and embarked on an outrageous sex marathon.
He was holed up in a palatial penthouse suite in one of the most luxurious hotels in Bangkok, and he was enjoying a different woman every night and having one of the times of his life.
Unfortunately, he overstayed his welcome at the hotel. They wanted the room back.
Billy didn't want to end his good time, so he promptly barricaded himself in.
3 weeks later, the party finally ended when Thai soldiers stormed his hotel room.
They had to knock down the door.
Smoke him out with stun grenades.
They were armed to the teeth and Billy didn't have a chance. He was strapped to the bed and dragged out of there.
He'd run up a bill of over 10 grand, but he'd also raised an important question. Just how difficult is it for an armed force to move a horny couple on a bed?
We decided to hold a competition to rate our own domestic forces. Sadly, neither the Army, the Navy or the Air Force were prepared to play ball. So we did some lateral thinking and narrowed the teams down to two of history's most feared fighting machines. The Vikings from Middlesex. And the Cowboys from Crystal Palace.
For our experiment, Mr. Idol's tricky path out of his hotel room has been painstakingly recreated using this giant inflatable toy.
Imagine that I'm Billy Idol and Natasha here is one of his lovely oriental lady friends. Which team's going to get us over that assault course the fastest?
Representing the army truck that Billy ended up in, the finishing post is this van. First against the clock, the Cowboys.
Are you ready, Cowboys? Yep. Go!
Up, guys, come on, guys.
Oh dear, our mean-looking hombres were in trouble before they even got to the first hurdle. Their luck suddenly changed, though, when someone discovered the benefits of throwing Natasha around like a side of beef. Of course, my fat ass was a little harder to manoeuvre, but I still couldn't help thinking that if these goons had really ruled the West, then the Indians would still be building wigwams in Times Square. Their final score? 33 seconds. Time for the contenders. Could the Vikings possibly get us into that van any faster?
Are you ready? Go!
Superior teamwork from the off. The bed was cleverly sent over solo before the Vikings showed their traditional delicacy with scantily clad women. I expect this is the kind of thing that used to happen to nuns in the 8th century, before they got raped. Anyway, they were well in the lead until they got to the final furlong, and that was when their problems really started. Natasha fell off the bed and she had to be hurled in after me. It was going to be a close finish.
1, 2, 3, okay.
Done it. 30 seconds. So well done to the lads with the horned helmets.
So if any of you ever have any problems with Billy Idol, or any other ageing punk rockers for that matter, you know what to do. Get your yellow pages, look up the Norseman.